Welcome back to Beast Machines Monday. He's your host,
Decepticon Doug.
I'm your other host, Predacon Palm. This episode is called Aftermath.
Fallout.
Fallout?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
This episode is called Fallout.
Although there are some resemblances to an episode called Aftermath, a little bit. So they made a bunch of swirly things happen in the sky.
And some swirly things around Optimus. There's lightning, a couple different flavors. We've got green flavored lightning. We've got red flavored lightning.
He literally turns to dust. Oh, right, because of the snap.
He gets moon dusted, yeah.
He's battling Megatron out in cyberspace, in the place between the Matrix and the
same place that
world.
Rhinox found him in Coming of the Fusors.
Right, he's there.
He's like, oh, this place again. Yeah.
He's like, oh, I remember this one. Megatron, remember that time that you blew me up? Megatron was like,
oh, yes. Best day of my life.
Good old days. Yes.
Wasn't that during the Beast War? He's like, no, it was during the Beasties. He's like, oh, right. Yes.
Yes. They start fighting there and bickering in I guess, what's Purgatory or whatever. They're like, whoa! He's like, Rrr! Lots of swirly things happen. Really, there's a lot. It's kind of hard to explain what's going on because it's really mostly a bunch of like
abstract.
Very abstract stuff. Optimus, very metaphysical. He's looking around. He's like, huh? Whoa.
He couldn't find his bananas here either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Rhinox is like, so, I joined the Matrix. I'm dead now.
And I totally accepted this as my future.
And maybe you don't have to die as well.
He's like, oh, I failed everyone. He's like, damn it, Optimus.
So, Optimus is back after he's been dusted, and he's gathering up all the energy beams, and he's, like, channeling them, and...
he grabs one.
Yeah, and then he grabs the other.
Grabs another one.
And he puts them, and then...
He crosses the streams, essentially.
Yeah, and then he shoots a beam right through the planet into the core, and then it seems to de-bluify everything, but also not organicify anything. He basically presses Control-Delete and just cancels all the tasks. With all the beams and stuff going everywhere and fixing things, the Maximals are back online. Finally. And they're like, whoa, we're back online.
How is this possible?
And then they look around and all the jets and tanks and motorcycles, they're all offline. Ratchet pops out. He's like, hey, everybody, I'm going to say a line. It's mildly funny. And now the Maximals are looking around. Ratchet plugs his little tail into the machine. They're like, okay, Ratchet, what can you tell us? And he's like, I can tell you nothing.
Oh my goodness.
The machine is offline. The planet is offline. Everything's been shut down.
The main core.
The planet core.
I was asking for that one. Is wiped out or something.
Mm-hmm. And they're like, okay, well, at least we're not getting shot at by those Viacon guys. And then the Viacon guys show up.
But let me guess. It was the ones with the spark.
It was Waspinator and Jet Guy. Jetstorm and Thrust basically start a fight. And then Cheeto's like, whoa, guys, what are we even fighting for?
Best line ever.
Like, what is
from Jet Guy? He's like, what, you got something else to do? He's just fighting because that's all he knows how to do. He's like, I
don't know. They just wind up shooting anyway, and then the fight is about to begin again. And then this time Black Arachne's like, guys, what are you doing? Black Arachne stops it, and then they're just like, okay, whatever. And then Jetstorm and Thrust, they just go off and do their own thing.
And then they go their separate ways, because that's what you do.
That's what you do when you have disagreements. You live your separate lives and go your different ways because you don't see eye to eye and you can't stand face to face. They're like, okay, we got to find Optimus because he's not here. And that's pretty smart. They got a good point.
Yeah,
so they go...
Because if he's not here, then where is he?
So they go into Megatron Citadel and everything's pretty dead there.
Everything.
Yeah, Megatron's there.
I'm dehydrated. He turns into dust.
There's no more Megatron in the big suit. And then they touch Tankor, and he just falls apart. And they're like, I guess he's dead. And then they're like, well, where's Optimus, though? And then they're like, And then there's actually a pretty gruesome sort of like half melted corpse thing on the ground.
It's just this flat.
Yeah, and it's got the little metal bit sticking out, but also like all the organic bits kind of melted. So that's great. That's fun.
That's what you get for touching 2 lightning bolts together.
Yeah, idiot. To never cross the streams.
So then they're like, hey, what should we do now? We should find the sparks.
They leave the Citadel where the sparks are. I mean, we know that, and I understand that they don't know that. This is us coming from the point of view of us knowing where they are, but also they could have tried to look.
Where else would Megatron keep all that crap?
That's the thing. All you have to do say, "Hey, Bat Boy," and he'd go like "Whack," and then he's just about to make that sound. And so he's like, "Do you want to look around and see if you can find any sparks?" And he could just fly around.
He could use echolocation, like,
Yeah.
there's all these weird little chamber things underneath the ground here.
So anyways, they just go, and then they wind up going underground to just to consult the Oracle, I guess.
Which is on fire.
Yeah. As
it's hidden behind a firewall.
Dun, 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 dun.
A firewall. A firewall.
Cheetor touches the firewall, and then they see a big old Optimus floating around in a bubble. He's like, word for word. And then he's like, I have to accept my fate.
Please forgive me for my transgressions. There's that T word again.
There it is. There you go. And we kind of get to explore Optimus's mind as he's floating through the Oracle, and he's learning to accept the fact that he is indeed dead, and he's going to join the Matrix. And he's flying through space, and he sees all these other Optimuses, and then he's like, wait a minute, is eternal life just me hanging out with myself? Because I'm kind of insufferable, and I don't know if I want to do that. What do I say? What do I say to the Oracle? I am ready to join the Matrix, but not today.
Because the Oracle wants us to make techno-organic stuff. And then he comes back to life.
The answer was in him all along. I have finally figured out what our job is. And then all these like techno-organic trees sprout out. He's like, do you see these trees? I don't know where they came from, but here they are.
They are a representation of what Cybertron is supposed to be.
Blue and green together. And everyone's like, oh, okay. They go up to the surface and they're like, we're going to find those sparks. Where are we going to look? And then out from the place where Megatron was, the Citadel, one might say, up comes this gigantic floating robot head. And they're like, holy crap, a gigantic floating robot head. The end.
Tell me, what did you enjoy about this episode? I know it was very cerebral. I got nothing. This episode was frustrating.
Yeah, it's a lot of nothing happening. And I appreciate that there's kind of supposed to be, because the generals are down for the count, essentially. Without the military leaders, or any government figures, or anything. It's basically just a handful of soldiers who have nothing to do. That's kind of what the story is. It's just sort of like, well, I guess, and then they even play on that a little bit with the, why are we fighting? And then they're like, well, I don't know. What else are we supposed to do?
Yeah.
So that's the part I like the most, actually, is the confrontation about
why they're fighting at all.
Yeah, why they even have to fight. They don't have to fight. They now are free to go live their lives however they want, but they still kind of fall back on fighting.
I do like that Jetstorm asks, and then Incredulous, like you got something better to do?
Like you've got something better to do.
Yeah, again, Jetstorm was kind of the highlight of the episode for me.
Yeah. Awesome. Good performance too by Mr. Drummond.
And I gotta say, is that fight scene pretty hot, pretty incredible. It was really cool.
Are you kidding? That was gonna be on my list of things that I didn't like.
That fight scene?
That fight scene was horrible.
No, I refuse.
Excuse me.
I'm not backing down off this one.
You're not gonna back
No,
down?
I'm
I'm gonna make you back down on this one.
Oh, no, wait.
You wanna go?
Let's go.
You wanna go right now?
Enough!
Sorry, Jamie.
Great.
All right, so we're not going to agree, but we can agree to disagree.
Actually, no, that was terrible. I do feel like it was a perfect encapsulation of what was like. What's kind of frustrating about the fight scenes in Beast Machines is that it was like almost like an exaggerated version of it because again nothing like substantial happened. It's just all a bunch of like whoosh 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 as they're striking poses.
We had this conversation the last time. I know it's an artistic choice.
Yeah.
What made it even more ridiculous is the fact that even after all of that whooshing and like they look like they were moving at hyperspeed and like they're blasting past and like the blue made it seem like they were moving so fast and all of this stuff was happening and then all of a sudden Black Arachnia is just like enough and they're literally like 12 feet away from each other. It was, and the one person is on top of another person at some point whatever. There was a nice little moment there like where Rat Trap has afterburns.
Oh, Cheetor has Thrust's hand.
Yeah, and he just said,
There you go, sorry.
He just takes it back. He's like, that's mine. It's kind of funny. Which I think it's a nice, I don't know if it was by accident or whatever, maybe I'm just like reading into it too much, but it shows the contrast between the organic and the techno. Because his hand can like unscrew and come off, I guess, and they can just put it back. Whereas the organic, if you lose your hand, it's gone. Like maybe you can grow it back, maybe you can stitch it back on.
Yeah, if you're like a lizard, or you have very complex medical procedures done to reattach limbs.
I mean, it worked for Luke.
Yeah, of course. Well,
that was
actually
really,
that was a robotic hand.
Yeah. I like that. The idea that Jetstorm also doesn't enjoy being subservient to or having fealty to Megatron, because he says in like a throwaway line, but it also speaks about him. Is he shows fealty when it's Megatron. He'll just kill you if you don't do what he says. So it's obviously out of self-preservation, but now that Megatron's out of the picture, he's like, we just got rid of one boss, and now you want us to follow you? Like, okay, so he doesn't really like being like, and it's obvious, like who would? Right, Megatron's kind of a D-bag.
Yeah, he was programmed to obey, and now that Megatron's out of the picture, he's sort of like, hey, this ain't so bad.
I'm gonna go back to doing that exact thing that he wanted me to do in the first place. And you know what? It's all about personal choice. Having the personal freedom to just do.
I guess that's the other things I liked. I do like the brief moment of Rhinox essentially saying farewell to Optimus and saying, I'm now paying the price for my choices, and now I'm going to join the Matrix.
Yeah. That was kind of cool. But it leads me to question something about Tankor, Rhinox, the different personalities, and whether or not reprogramming him back to his original state was the right choice to make. I mean, I know in the grand scheme of things, everything had to come to a head like this, so that way we could get this converging of techno and organic components to the story, so we can ultimately get to that point, which wouldn't have happened if Tankor wasn't being Tankor, but Rhinox. Tankor. But at the same time, it leads me to question whether or not it was Rhinox who was making the choices because it's something he wanted to do, or whether he was corrupted by whatever Megatron did to him when he extracted a spark and put him in the tank.
Yeah.
Because he seemed like Rhinox when he talked to him.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh no, I must atone for my sins and blah, 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 blah.
That's not a Tankor thing to say.
That's not a Tankor thing to say. And I don't mean the Tankor,
the
like Rhinox Tankor. Yeah. You know what I mean? I feel like totally. I'm over-articulating this.
But I know exactly what you mean. It's sort of, it does make you wonder. It's like, geez, maybe it would have been the right thing to do to set him back to defaults and have Rhinox back to be Rhinox. It makes you wonder, like, was it really his free will to be evil?
I don't think so.
I don't know.
Because I have my doubts on it, or maybe he's just at peace now that he's no longer fighting for something.
Yeah. It's hard to say.
That's ambiguous, I guess.
Yeah.
I think it would have been more interesting if they did turn him back and they removed the negative programming, but his desire for this key of Teletron or whatever it's called.
The key to Vector Sigma.
That's the one.
Yeah.
The Vector Sigma key. It'd be interesting if that was a point of contention between Rhinox and Optimus, and that somehow forced him to have to work with Megatron to see those ends.
Yeah.
That would have added a nice, fun dynamic there. As opposed to him like, according to my plan, and then Megatron's like,
I used
My
my
plan
other
comes true.
pinky. That's fair. Yeah, it would have been made for a very different finale to season 1.
And then if it was Optimus realizing that there's merit in what both Rhinox and Megatron were doing, because at this point, I don't even think Megatron even knows what he's doing. Like, I think the Oracle is behind even Megatron doing his thing.
I guess if are you ready to move into things we don't like, or
Sure.
Yeah. One thing that it mentioned was that everything that happened because the Oracle says so, including the Beast Wars and being sent back in time. I have issues sometimes with sort of predestined storylines.
We already established that it is not predestination. There's that episode where Megatron has the golden disc, he has Rampage, and he's like, blow the heck out of that mountain. And Rampage is like, yes, sir. Yeah, bang. Then it explodes, and then ultimate power. There is no predestination. We've already established.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah, no, that's true. Is that our choices are our own. That was Dinobot's whole story arc.
Did you guys just inadvertently take a dump on Dinobot?
Uh-oh. So I don't like the idea that, everyone is sent to Earth to gather up
Energon.
organic matter and bring it back to Cybertron. Cybertron's always had access to organic matter.
Underneath the surface.
Ever since the Transformers appeared on Earth in the first place.
It's got the liquid goo that turns things blue.
No, it makes the things grow with the
vines.
Yeah. So I don't understand why they needed to try to make things more like it was the big plan and big master plan all along, because I prefer the idea that things just happen. Sometimes things just happen, and when you're a hero, you have to try to make the best choices you can to set things right. And sometimes it means you sacrifice your life for a bunch of prehistoric humans, and sometimes it
Except
means
Una, she can die.
Una, she's not important. Una sucks.
Una! Excellent hammerlock!
And sometimes it means that you fly an Autobot shuttle right into the bridge of the Nemesis and knock all Megatron's teeth out. So history's still being written, as Rhinox said at the end of Beast Wars. So, like Neo said,
Do you believe in fate, Neo?
No,
Why not?
because I don't like the idea that I'm not in control of my life.
just like with Neo and Dinobot, we're not destined to save the day. We have to make choices. And that's what I just don't like the idea of them bringing Beast Wars into the fold.
This doesn't make any freaking sense. They have star drives that can take you anywhere in space and time, okay? Why did you have to go to Earth for organic matter to bring it back to Cybertron?
Especially like
Pick a planet.
yeah,
There's an entire universe out there. Why did it have to be prehistoric Earth? That doesn't make any sense.
And
they
again-
wrote themselves into a hole here.
And again, Cybertron has had contact with Earth for centuries. Like, they've had contact with Earth. It's implied that they've been in Beast Wars they've been cut off from Earth, but before that,
How did they get cut off?
is that I get, or at least the impression that I get is that I don't know why or how, but Earth became too dangerous to have in the mix between the Maximals and the Predacons because of how much energon it had. And so that's why they basically they needed the coordinates from the Golden Disc to find Earth again. So
Maybe they just weren't welcome on Earth anymore.
that's what I'm thinking, is that there was like
Earth was like,
welcome-
we've got big guns now and we can blow you up.
seriously guys, take your war somewhere else.
Yeah.
So that's my guess, is that there was a decision where we're leaving Earth out of it. I get it.
We have an exceptional ability to make things that go boom.
How many Earth cities have been destroyed because of the Transformers? I don't say that that's my biggest beef with this episode. Is, I mean, apart from the fact that it just kind of meanders for the most part, and there's only so much like Optimus floating through space and grunting that I can really take in an episode.
There was no sense, there was no reason for any of it, because Optimus turned into dust, and then that was resolved by the end of the episode. You had that inner conflict, and then that was resolved by the end of the episode.
I think it's funny that the end of every season, an Optimus has to die. Like in Beast Wars, Optimus dies,
yeah.
and then this one, it's just another Optimus dies. In fact, he it's interesting because he gets dusted right at the beginning of this one, and then he comes back, saves Cybertron and then essentially dies again, and then gets resurrected again from the Oracle right at the very end. And I almost feel like it's just some of those repeat motions that makes the story plot along. It just like it repeats itself, even with the fight, the stuff we did, like the fight with the Viacons. They're gonna fight and then they're told to stop, and then they bicker, and then they're gonna fight and then they're told to stop again. They're trying to get the momentum started, but they just keep stalling because I think they didn't have enough actual story for this episode.
I don't get it. I don't understand. By the end of the episode, I legit looked at Doug and I was like, what the heck just happened? And why am I supposed to be surprised and or worried for the Max Haze now that there's a giant floating head of Megatron? Let me guess. He's going to re-download into Cybertron and he's going to get control of the Viacons again because his giant head. And now he has the processing power to do it. Or maybe he's got all the sparks in there. That's why he's got to be so darn big. I don't know.
But it does kind of show that it's setting the motions to kind of put things back to the status quo.
And the status is not quo. Because we've already established that we're going to organic things.
Now the objective is to turn things techno-organic. So really the objective is not that dissimilar from the objective in Season 1, which was to make things organic. It's just now instead of just green things, they want to make everything blue and green things. But the very first episode, the reformatting, there was a lot of questions that it was asking, and it really like hooked us into a mystery. I feel like that really wasn't the case this time. I didn't feel like there was much of a mystery that I wanted to sink my teeth into. The only thing that it leaves you with is like, why is there now a giant head in the sky?
Yeah. And do I really care? There were no stakes.
Yeah.
There were no stakes at all.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's because they left all the cows on Earth.
Oh man.
Sorry everybody.
But the stakes couldn't have been higher.
And also, they weren't expecting any vampires on Cybertron. Alright, I'm done. I'm gonna see you later, everybody. Alright. But it's true. It's true. Because, I mean...
I couldn't follow any of that. That was just too good.
Oh, boy. Well, after much deliberation, we did decide that this episode would fall out, right?
It did kind of just fall out of the DVD.
Hey-o!
On the screen.
We're gonna give it 1 out of 5 melted Optimus corpses, because,
There's zero stakes. It doesn't seem to go anywhere. Nothing's really changed in the episode.
It's just trying to sort of work its way to the end of the episode where Optimus can kind of give the mission statement of Season 2. And in the meantime, nothing much else happens.
And I guess now we can just come back after being turned into dust. Well, it worked for Inferno, I guess.
We should have a... Actually, that's true. It did work for Inferno. He just welded himself back together. How many times has Optimus come back to life now? Because I feel like he's been resurrected a lot. A lot more than the average person. But let us know what you thought of Fallout in the comments down below. We'd love to chat about it. Maybe we missed something, tell us. We'd like to know. But, of course, don't worry, everybody. Beast Machines Monday is still happening. Mm-hmm. We're not giving up yet. So... And you can't stand face to face.
Better than sitting butt to face, I suppose.
It depends on whose butt's in your face.
That's true.